So hi to everyone and thanks for joining us. And hi to Jennifer. Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and just introduce yourself, anything you want to say?
Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer and I've been online for really long. I don't like to admit how long, but I've been teaching on YouTube since 2007 and I came on Instagram just less than a year ago. So I'm always experimenting, but my teaching days go back to the 90s. And I did my teacher training when I was an undergrad. I continued preparing for teaching as a graduate student. And I didn't intend to teach English as a foreign or second language, but that's the way it turned out, and I'm very happy.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I'm really excited to get to talk to you because I remember like seeing your videos a long time ago when I started teaching. Because that was about the time when you started on YouTube. And there wasn't a lot of teachers at that time, so I was always looking for videos to show students. Sorry, I'm just going to get some headphones. And yeah, so I'm really excited to get to meet you and talk to you and sort of hear about your experiences as a teacher online, because you were one of the first ones, which is really cool. So yeah. I wanted to just start by asking what made you want to teach online, to start with, because I think at that time a lot of people weren't doing it when you first started.
No, but there also weren't a lot of options for us. What would you do? I mean, Skype was around, so there were some people considering using Skype or perhaps tentatively using Skype, but YouTube was quite new. I think Mr. Duncan was one of the first teachers that I had seen. There were just like a few, like a handful of people posting English videos. Yeah. But I didn't think too much about it. It was more just circumstances in my life because I became a mother. And it was me trying to find a way to continue teaching. And I didn't see it even as a business opportunity. I just loved to teach so much, and I missed it because I stepped out of the classroom. I took a book contract. I was writing textbooks. I had my son. And then I realized, you know, this is going to be really hard. And I tried, and it was just so very difficult to juggle full-time work, commuting, a baby, another baby on the way. And I thought, I'm not going to do it. I had
especially teaching.
I had the opportunity because my husband supported my efforts to continue in some way. And luckily, there was little pressure at the time. Financially. So I started on YouTube simply for the love of teaching, and for, you know, there was no profit for years, but it was just a way for me to do what I love and teach. And so I didn't know what I was creating and what I was doing and what opportunities I was creating for myself even in the future. But I'm just so very fortunate that things turned out the way they did.
Yeah. Well, and everyone else is fortunate that now they get to enjoy your videos.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see the ones, you know, like going back in time. I was watching one where you were in the back of your house talking about expressions in nature.
That was one of the first, the very first. And I think I love telling any other teacher starting today. Of course, most teachers starting today have a much stronger handle on technology than I did. Yeah. 2007, all I knew how to do was to hold the camera, record, stop, and then you upload. And so I didn't even have a tripod to hold my camera. The first couple of videos, my husband was holding the camera the whole time. And then when he had to start working, I would put the camera like on books and cereal boxes, and I was just doing the best I could while the children were asleep. But I was very thankful. You just, you know, as I went along, I got better. Just like I would tell the students, if you show interest and you want to learn, then I will get better too as an online teacher.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like that on YouTube too, because it's sort of, you know, the videos that don't look super professional, or, you know, you sort of kind of get into someone's life. I think people really enjoy that on YouTube, especially.
Yeah, I once compared myself to a weather reporter. Like when you turn on the news, it's like the local weather reporter that you see every day. That's just me. Hi.
Yeah, but I think people really can connect to that better than, you know, very super professional. Hi, Meti. Like super professional videos, maybe, you know, people kind of feel some kind of connection. So what type of video do you like to make the most, or like what's your favorite topic, or just
You know,
anything people like, or
I do try, obviously, to meet the demands and requests as
uh-huh.
best I can. I have had so much fun coming on Instagram because it's a different platform with a different format, and uploading
Yeah.
videos on Instagram means staying under 1 minute.
Yeah.
And so I've really had fun thinking, what can I give of value in 1 minute? So I've enjoyed focusing on listening and pronunciation, especially those dictations, because I want them to be short so that people can watch and rewatch. If you need to watch five
Mm-hmm.
times, it's not a big time commitment. And I think that's what it's about. When you're studying online and you find the resources, I know you're busy. So I love that Instagram clips can be very short, and I really enjoy creating those kinds of videos now.
Mm-hmm.
However, I still commit myself to weekly videos on YouTube, and
Mm.
although they're very enjoyable, they're very, very time consuming. They take
Yes.
hours,
Mm-hmm.
hours to make.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So what is your opinion about this now that Instagram has sort of changed, I think, a lot of things, and we just expect, okay, a minute and my English will improve or something. Do you think it's possible if you just do a minute every day, or like how much practice do you think, and how much can you really learn in a minute, do you think?
it's not so much that 1 minute that will change your life and make so much progress. It's that accumulatively, meaning all together and over
Mm-hmm.
time, the regular practice will help. So I like to tell people, whether it's YouTube or Instagram, it's very much worth following more than one teacher. There are a lot of teachers. It doesn't mean you can follow 100. It doesn't mean you will have the time and the ability to follow all those 100 teachers, but even just a handful for a few months, and you can switch it off. It's okay. We won't get offended. Of course, we want you to follow us all the time, but I think it's helpful to follow different teachers, just a few, regularly, because we're posting different types of content on different days throughout the week. And so
Mm-hmm.
with the help of several online teachers, you can get your daily dose of English practice.
Mm-hmm.
And you will learn better as a learner. You'll become a better learner because we are teaching different ways. So even if we
Yeah.
cover some of the same topics, you are becoming a better learner by learning how to adapt to different teaching styles. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's all very good. And yes, the 1 minute clips in the big picture are very useful.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of agree, and sort of just quick things you can do, and I also think it's more motivating, especially with my experience teaching kids.
Mm-hmm.
Just our attention span is just not that long, and it's almost like you can't expect anyone to watch a whole 10-minute video and really pay attention the whole time. So these 1-minute clips, I think, force us as teachers to sort of be very concise and direct, and like just give the most important information, and leave it at that, instead of being
Right.
overly verbose, because I think I find myself all the time, I think all teachers do, just trying to over explain something, and then you just realize, okay, no one's paying attention.
Then again, but that's why I love the two platforms now, is I know
Yeah,
what I need to do on
can do both.
Instagram, but on YouTube I can explore
Hi, Mahmoud.
topics in great depth. And I have experimented on YouTube. I've gone up, I have my 20-minute videos. I did 20 minutes last week, and I have another 28-minute video coming out tomorrow.
Okay, guys, so check our YouTube channel for that video coming out tomorrow. Do you find a lot of people will watch all the way through for those long videos?
There's a good expression, die hard. The die hard people, yes.
Uh-huh.
There are a
Yeah.
few people who will watch all the way through. But I also think it's fine. I know the videos are on demand, so if it's particularly challenging, if it is grammar, I know that someone will come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the great thing about the videos now, is that you can watch it and pause it, you can go back, and you can pick up at the middle and continue. So it's like that textbook come alive, and it's there when you need it. So I do think it's still worth creating that 20-minute video sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's a big amount of information that we're putting in the hands of our students, our learners.
Yeah.
It's still valuable. I know it's not
Yeah,
going to be
because
watched all the way through all the time.
uh-huh. Yeah, and you can't really get everything you need, I think, if you're just watching short clips, and at some point you sort of need oh, hi from El Salvador. you sort of need a more structured thing, or like more, detailed information or things like that.
Or even what we're doing now, it's the extended speech. So you guys get to hear us not just for 60 seconds. It's, if you listen, it's a different listening experience now.
Definitely, yeah. And especially in a dialogue, seeing all the different intonation and the back and forth.
Yeah.
So that sort of brings me to my next question about what do you think are the benefits and the drawbacks of teaching online?
I wonder if there are other teachers. I haven't seen any names go by yet, but
so teachers, if you have anything to add, put them in the comments and we'll give you a shout out. Any English teachers watching. Benefits and drawbacks of teaching online.
I think the majority of us who've gone online, the number one reason is independence and flexibility. Mm-hmm. And I still continue for that reason. The main reason I probably will not go back into a full-time position for a while is because I need complete flexibility for my family. So I just don't know how I would be able to juggle a full-time job outside the home and take on my family responsibilities. Yep. So I'd say flexibility and independence are the number one. But that also comes with a drawback. When you're completely independent, it is like running a business, so there is no safety net. You're not guaranteed a paycheck at the end of the week. So if we want to talk about the truth of can you survive, it's very difficult. It's challenging because things fluctuate, they change. You can get to a point where it's more or less the same, but it's not guaranteed. So yeah. But yes, I like what someone wrote. I'm sorry.
What did they say? You reach a wider audience?
Definitely. That's the biggest thing. It's like, we all get worried, like how many views, how many hits, how many likes. But the truth is, even if you have 200 views, that's more than I would have in a classroom. Absolutely. So it's very exciting.
What about from the perspective of a learner? What do you think about learning English online versus in person or with some type of I guess there's a couple different things to compare. Like if you're learning online by just watching, for example, someone's YouTube channel versus actually getting an online class from them versus getting a class in person.
So the first question you're asking, just studying online versus in a structured course? Obviously, there are promised goals in a course. With online, there's less. There isn't some sort of agreement at the very beginning of the experience that I will do this and you will do that, and what will the outcome be. So with the course, it's nice because you know exactly what you're going to get, what the expectations are, and there will be an outcome. I love structured courses. I do every so often throughout the year, I do small group courses, and it's a very intimate experience, but I like working with a small group for, let's say, about a month. My most recent one was 3 months for creative writing. And I like having that interaction with a specific group of students. And yes, I can message you and say, are you writing? Where's your work? And make sure. And when you're on your
accountability.
Phone, I think one of the challenges is that there isn't somebody putting pressure on you to study and complete your work. And that's one of the obstacles, is finding that motivation. Unless you have, when you have a course and you've enrolled in it and you've paid for it, you have that accountability. And the teacher will also be reaching out with reminders to help you stay on track. It is a different experience when you're simply just studying on your own.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's so different based on even my own experience learning language. If you don't have some type of structured, you can always say, I'll study on my own or whatever, which I actually got myself into a situation when I was in studying in the university where I was supposed to have a certain level of Spanish before I graduated. And I always said, I'll just, study it on my own, and I'll watch some videos online and, do all those things. And then it came to the end and I hadn't learn Spanish at all, so I said, oh shoot, what am I going to do now? So I ended up having to go and study abroad for that exact reason. I didn't go and get a structured course, but once I did that, then I was able to become fluent eventually. So I think it's super, super important to have some sort of structured thing with a goal and an outcome, like you mentioned. But I've actually never taken an online course in language. So I'm just wondering if you have any, like based on the feedback that you get from learners, like what kind of feedback do you get from them?
I think I've only done one self-paced course. I definitely feel that I can have more of an impact and more of an influence positively when it's a short-term course and there are deadlines. So I like that structure where we are agreeing what needs to be done within a certain amount of time. When it's a little too open-ended, there are always excuses for not doing the work in a timely manner. And then the more you put it off, then the more excuses you find, and then it's easier to give up. But that said, it's still possible. Somebody wrote the word persistence, and I agree with that. Persistence, motivation. If you're on your own, I think somebody wrote something about you writing your own syllabus. I'm not sure if you meant as a learner, as a teacher, but certainly as a learner, if you have that discipline to write down your goals and your study plan, it's certainly possible to give structure to your online studies. And I think that's very realistic. Like there's so many, we said there's so many teachers, you can follow a handful, but again, I think it's good to have some kind of plan in your mind so that you can have regular study, because only through regular study will there be progress. So for example, you need to say, what can I commit to this week? Is it every day 10 minutes? Is it 3 days a week for 20 minutes? What are you going to commit to?
Yep. Okay, so everybody, you heard it from Jennifer, you heard it from me, and from ChatterFox. You have to have a structured plan. And Jennifer offers that. ChatterFox also offers that for pronunciation. So anyone who's interested, be sure to check out Jennifer's. Do you have a website where people can go and sign up?
I do.
For your courses? Okay.
But actually, I mean, there's many different options, and that's the other thing I've been exploring. I realized that, different interests, different needs, and different budgets. So, it's important to know that there are plenty of ways to study for free with teachers and also on your own. And if you want some ideas, I think Emily and I can give some more ideas on what you can do on your own. But, always when you start following a teacher, start listening and reading so you find out everything that they can offer to you and decide which of those options are best for you. Some people have subscription-based websites. Some people have ebooks. Some people have courses. So find out what this teacher offers and then decide what's within your budget. I've more recently created levels of membership on YouTube. So the higher up you go, the more interaction you can get, because obviously one thing that people seek is feedback. Like, I can speak, I can do that, but can you please correct me? Can you please edit this? Like, yes, but this is a higher level of interaction.
Yeah, because that's your time.
There are levels of membership, and the highest form of interaction you can get from me is a one-on-one lesson, which I offer. And you can book through the website.
Great. All right. So check out Jennifer's website. And do you offer courses mostly on speaking or on all different types of topics in English?
I've been online since 2007. I've been teaching privately, and then I started group courses. Basically, the live teaching began in 2009. And I often say the only way I've been able to keep this up is because, one, I have flexibility, but total freedom, meaning I get to choose what I want to focus on, which is interesting to me. So I've done dictation courses, I've done listening courses, I've done writing courses, I've done current issue courses, whatever is currently interesting to me and also in demand among my followers, that's what I do. So I am a teacher who doesn't focus on one skill specifically, because I do have the belief that language is a whole language and all skills are connected. So if someone says they want to work on pronunciation, I can focus on pronunciation, but it will be integrated with other skills. We'll do some reading, we'll do some conversation, vocabulary will be woven in. Somebody who wants to do email, that's also opening the doors to some grammar and vocabulary. So I can give a focus on a skill, but I believe in connecting all the other skills as well.
Great. Well, speaking of pronunciation, so that is actually what ChatterFox focuses on. We're developing a mobile application that uses voice recognition and AI to detect, like, if people are making sounds correctly.
Nice.
Yeah, so we are focusing on like pronunciation, word stress, intonation, and, you know, especially just speaking skills in general. So I was wondering if you could share some tips you have, or a lot of students always ask about improving their speaking, and the, you know, just tips you have to do that, or things that you have. Oh, let me pin that. I'll pin your comment.
Someone asked, what's my name? I'm Jennifer.
Okay, I'll pin, this is Jennifer's website, guys, so go there to check her out. But she's about to give us some tips on speaking and pronunciation.
Oh, I guess one thing we should address, and you can chime in with Emily, is like, I know it's wonderful to have a partner. It's wonderful to have feedback from a teacher, but that doesn't mean that you cannot practice on your own. So people sometimes say, like, what do I do if I don't have a partner? What do I do if I'm not in a country where everyone speaks English? Well, you have the internet, first of all. There's so much exposure and so many opportunities.
Yes.
But first of all, don't forget that even though you want to speak, all the skills are connected. So if you read, reading is still important, and reading will reinforce the grammar that you know, expose you to new grammar patterns, and also you can build your vocabulary. So I really feel that regular reading is good. There are two types of reading that I recommend. You can read silently, you know, and you don't have to look up every single word all the time. If you are looking up too many words, perhaps what you need to do is go to a resource that has graded readings, so there is something more at your level. I've recommended readtheory.org, for example, where you can read independently. So reading silently also helps build grammar and vocabulary, and you need grammar and vocabulary for conversation. The second thing you can do is read aloud. I have an oral reading fluency series on YouTube that I've slowly been building. And the idea is to read short text, not long ones, and they can be somewhat easy, because if you're focusing too much on trying to understand what you're reading, you will not read with great expression and a lot of fluency. So it's actually a little easier to read shorter text and easier text, and then you read it multiple times and build your confidence and build your fluency. If you have a model from someone like me, some Emily, that's better. Or you can go to news sites where there are podcasts and transcripts like NPR. And so it's the idea of just getting a good model and listening and repeating, reading aloud to the point where you develop your confidence and fluency. But anytime you have the opportunity to speak aloud, even if you're all alone, that's practice. You know, you can talk to yourself if you're alone in the house. What are you doing? If you're driving, talk about where you're going, what you're doing, what you're thinking about. It's just the practice of putting your ideas into words and speaking out loud and getting comfortable hearing yourself speak English.
Yeah.
And another way you can do for self-evaluation, you don't have a teacher, we all have smartphones because you're watching now, and your smartphones have an app.
You can record yourself.
You can record yourself. There are many ways to do this. There's some really cool apps out there for recording yourself, but the easiest one, I have an iPhone, so I voice memo. Whatever you have on your phone, record yourself. So here's a way you can do it. You want to set yourself up for success, and you want to set it up so that there is opportunity for improvement. So what you can do, for example, is choose a topic like, what am I doing tomorrow? Or what's my goal for, I don't know, next year? Or what was my favorite vacation? Whatever the topic is, record yourself. And one possible approach is, I think you've seen this in the classroom, but you can modify this for single person. Time yourself, give yourself about 3 minutes and just talk. You're going to pause, you're going to say, you're going to say, wait a second, it's okay, just go. And the next time, record yourself for 2 minutes, same topic, and try to pull it together. You know, focus more, you know what you're saying, be more concise, use your better vocabulary this time. Now that you've practiced, do the 1 minute recording. See if you can condense it all into a nice, fluid speech of what you're doing on your next vacation, whatever the topic is. And if you use that kind of 3-2-1 approach, with some pauses in between, you're giving yourself the chance to do it better each time. And then you listen to yourself. And yes, I know the first time you hear yourself, you're like, I hate my voice.
It's awkward. Yeah, a couple people have been commenting, it's awkward, I don't like the way my voice sounds, which is true.
Everybody thinks that.
Everybody thinks that. Imagine us teachers having to record videos of ourselves. You think it's awkward to hear your voice. Just wait until you see your video. Yeah, but you have to do it. You have to do it because you want to see how other people are seeing you and hearing you. Otherwise, you won't have good information. And sometimes, you know, I think I'm speaking one way in a video, and then I watch it and I say, oh, wow, that's not the video I wanted to make. So you have to understand how other people see you and hear you.
Right.
So I think that's great advice.
I'll address one comment because it's not an uncommon one. I won't say it's frequent, but I hear it. Is, Jennifer, why do you speak so slowly? I get that sometimes, especially for my basic English videos. Of course, in my mind, I am not going to speak very fast in my basic English videos for a good reason. But sometimes I even slow down in my more advanced videos if I'm teaching a more complex topic. And I do this for a number of reasons. If you listen to speeches, lectures, whatnot, they're usually not speaking at what we call a breakneck speed.
Yeah, conversational is not a conversation.
Do not assume that fast is best. Okay, this is I think people assume the faster I speak, the more natural sound. It's true. Native speakers speak faster, and we tend to speak quite fast often, especially between each other. Emily and I would go really fast. It's true. But in another situation, when it's very important to be understood, we slow down.
Yes.
And articulate. And if you are speaking so fast that you lose control of your pronunciation, the sounds, the intonation, the stress, then what's the point? What is the point of trying to rush if you lose control? So even if you're in the great situation that you're with native speakers, you're thinking, great, here's my opportunity. Don't feel the pressure. Wow, they're speaking fast. I have to go as fast as them. If you can, great. But if you're not at that level yet, it's more important to use the clear words, great vocabulary that you know, and give yourself the chance to express yourself at your best. And perhaps the speed isn't as important as you think.
Yeah, and I love the point you made about how important it is to be understood and also to use the vocabulary that you know, because I'm sure that you've read about this study they did, Jennifer, on the speeches of U.S. presidents, and they found that the most speeches are at not more than an 8th grade level of grammatic complexity and vocabulary and everything, and that's, you know, that's okay. So if you can't speak all these, you know, very complex words and sentences, grammatical structures and everything, that may not even be an issue for you. Even a U.S. president can do it. So it's, you know, it's sort of more important to articulate and to be understood and to present yourself in a way that you want to, which includes pronouncing well, you know, and pronouncing in a way that's going to be effective.
And I say that, like, also as a private instructor, I often record my lessons, and if I hear the playback, I'm like, wow, I was going really fast. Because in a private lesson, it is not scripted, and I am speaking more naturally. And once my students become used to me, even like intermediate to even some basic, they will get some really fast speech from me. And again, why do I speak slowly often, especially in my YouTube videos? It's because my other idea behind my role as a teacher is that I build the bridge. You will get all those fast models away from me. You'll get them in the news, on TV, in movies, in the songs. I can build the bridge for you from going from the slow speech that you can understand to the faster speech. So I feel like I can give you that stepping stone to the fast speech. So there are times I'll go fast, but there's a lot of times I do slow down and I do articulate more than I would for, you know, a friendly conversation on the phone. But I feel that's part of my role as a teacher. And if it gets really easy for you, then great, it's time to move on, because another goal, it's sad to say, is for me to teach you to the point where you don't need me anymore. Because if you need me for 15, 20 years, then I'm not doing my job.
That is very true about English, especially. So I like your comment about the teaching learners how to sort of listen to fast speech and then hopefully be able to speak not necessarily faster themselves, but at least to understand it. So I wanted to know what kind of things that you actually teach. Like, do you explicitly teach reductions, linking, things like that? What do you teach to help students actually learn to speak in that way?
With fast speech, I have a playlist on YouTube called Fast Speech.
Okay.
And I originally designed it so that people could hear and understand what we're doing. And it's a lot of things that everyone has done. I just put all of it together in a playlist. Linking, how do we connect sounds? Reduction, what happens when sounds are not stressed? Disappearing syllables and letters that we don't pronounce. All of that is fast speech. Now, if you get to the point where you understand this, the next step is to use that same playlist for listen, repeat. But then moving on from there, I also have a playlist on intonation, rhythm and intonation. And although I do also, in a long time ago, I created a playlist on sounds, and I do believe that, you know, individual sounds are important. There can be mistakes and misunderstandings because of individual sounds, but I feel, and I think a number of other teachers also agree, that really what makes you sound more natural is the rhythm and intonation, because that's the music of the language. So you can still have what's called that accent. But if you have a natural rhythm and a natural intonation to your English, it will be easier for everyone to understand and accept it. So it is okay not to be, you know, 100% accurate, as long as it's in the range of what is understood. The rhythm and intonation is what's going to make someone from a distance say, aha, that's English, right? So in my playlist, I go step by step. Yes, I teach falling intonation, rising intonation, but I go a step further because there are other patterns. I think sometimes courses, textbooks, they fall short and they only cover falling and rising, when in fact there are other patterns to do. And so I cover
It's hard
that.
to teach those, though.
I know, but I did it on Instagram. It's like we could do it right now. Like, what do we say? Like, well, I actually can do that. Well, that's not rising, that's falling. That's a combination. Well,
up and down and up and down.
Fall rise patterns, or you know. So I think if you take the time to learn all the different patterns and understand how we break up our thoughts into thought groups. I teach thought groups. I teach word stress, sentence stress, linking, and there are two ways of approaching that. So in my, for example, the playlist on intonation, it's very direct and explicit. But if you use the oral reading fluency series, I don't teach anything explicitly. You're just listening and repeating. And if you pick up, that's great. So you can learn both ways. And I think it's important to try both ways.
Yeah, I always tell people that it's really important not necessarily to know, like in every single sentence, to know, okay, my intonation should be going up and down, whatever. You know, you can't memorize any word stress and every sentence pattern and things like that. But what I think is really important for a lot of learners is just to understand what the concepts even are. Like, what is word stress? What is linking? What do those things even mean? Because I think a lot of, at least from what I've seen, a lot of teachers don't really teach that. And then, you know, you have students that they're just trying to repeat whatever they hear. And then whatever they're repeating may not be that accurate. And so, but once you know, okay, I should listen for which words to link together, and these are some patterns, then you're more able to actually listen to someone and sort of actually mimic them in a way that actually sounds natural and fluent versus just sort of trying to repeat the sounds.
Yes.
So it's important, I think, to teach the concepts, as you mentioned, like what intonation is even.
But why do we use it and when do we use it? Like, we use the falling intonation, you know, for completion, for finality, we're done. And we use the rising often for uncertainty, or that we're going to continue. So it's important to do that. But I love also, there's two parts. When they say teach pronunciation, some students have the idea that's all about production. But there's a very strong listening component. You have to hear things correctly and accurately in order to start reproducing them. So that's the beauty of a private lesson, for example. Whether I'm working on intonation or individual sounds, I can test your listening, where you listen to me and I and I can see if you're understanding me correctly. And then we switch roles where the student reads through certain statements or words and I'm listening. And that's a fun thing you could even do with a partner. So let's say if you are lucky to find a conversation partner or a study buddy, and you guys can meet on Skype or someplace, you know, you can do lists of words. Emily probably can also post the phrase minimal pairs. If you just Google minimal pairs, you can probably get lists of words, words that are so similar except one sound, you know, like peas that we eat and bees that go around. And if you get lists of these words with your partner, you could read through and take turns and say, let's say to Emily, I'm going to say, Emily, am I saying peas or bees? Oh my gosh, look at the bees. And all Emily has to do is, I heard this one, Jennifer. She doesn't even have to speak. So with your partner, you take turns saying, which word did you hear with those minimal pairs, and switch roles. And it's a matter of gaining enough accuracy to make sure that you know you're being understood.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, especially for that sound piece that you were talking about, that is not always so important to have all the correct sounds, but in some cases it is really important. So those are the types of words where it is actually really important, where there is a equivalent word with just one different sound, minimal pair.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to ask the viewers, anyone who's watching, if you have any questions for Jennifer or for me about English teaching, English fluency. I'm just going to turn on the Q&A. And then, oh, okay, I see we already have some. How can native speakers, wait, okay, oh, how should I always be motivated? This is a good one. Students ask this a lot. Can you see this, the one I just pinned?
Not yet. Word stress intonation came up. But it's about motivation?
Motivation, yeah. I'm trying to see if I can post this question. How should I stay motivated?
Do you want to tackle that one first and I'll add on, or?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I think for staying motivated, we already talked about it a little bit. This is, I think, has a lot to do with your own commitment and what you see in your future. Like, for example, if you're having trouble communicating at work, for example, which I think happens to a lot of people, that they may have a PhD in engineering or something, but then they go to work and they're just like, no one understands me, or no one's taking me seriously because of the way that I speak. So I think in that case, you're motivated and you say, okay, I'm committed to doing this. But, if you're not motivated, if you're not willing to commit, then, even the best teacher in the world can't really help you out with that. So in terms of how to motivate yourself, I think you should just think about exactly what your goals are. Set a goal that's measurable, that you can actually work towards and say, I'm going to accomplish this, and I'm going to have it like a way to see that you have accomplished it, instead of just sort of some vague thing like, I'm going to improve my English. You should have some sort of very measurable, tangible thing that you can do, like, I'm going to complete a 3-month course, or I'm going to, for every day for the next month, I'm going to do 10 minutes of practice or something like that. I think that's the best way.
And I also think it's just not to get over-eager and, again, try to follow 50 different teachers and try to pack in as much as you can on a single day. It's like if you have too many goals and too many resources, you're not going to accomplish much. So it's better to stay more focused and limit the resources. So do be selective, at least for a short amount of time. Let's say for 1 month or 3 months, follow just a handful of teachers and follow their suggestions, because if you're trying to do too much, it's probably that none of those approaches are going to really pay off. I had one private student who surprised me. She was quite fluent to begin with, who wanted to work on her confidence in oral reading. And all we did in our private lessons were the oral readings. And we did have some chit-chat in between, so there was conversation, and we talked about life and the readings and things like that. But there was a heavy focus on these oral readings. And boy, oh boy, I mean, did she master a lot of it. And sometimes I felt like, wow, I'm listening to myself, because she really listened to the models and she mimicked my intonation, my rhythm, and was making the same decisions that I would make reading this text. But it just shows you that with a focus and knowing this is what I want to accomplish within these 2 months, I want to get really good at reading these sets of texts. And I want to sound fluent, I want to sound natural, I want my sounds to be clear, and I want to use the intonation that is most natural. And she accomplished that because we didn't digress onto other things. So I think it's important to have that plan, select your resources wisely, and use them wisely.
Yeah, and actually I love that story, because I think this, I'm going to pin my own comment, this question I get a lot. Is it possible? Like, is it possible to become fluent? And I love the story that you just told, because you told about someone who really focused and decided they were going to do it. She enrolled in a specific program, so she was able to, you know, have some kind of goal and mimic what you said, and she was really focused on it. And then she had some success in doing that. So is it possible, and can you give any more comment about maybe success stories that you've had, or people that have really been able to accomplish what they wanted?
The ones who are most successful, the motivation comes from two sources. We try to, of course, motivate you as teachers, but motivation also has to come from within. So I believe that there are two sources of responsibility. Us as teachers need to commit and do our utmost to help you reach the goals with our methodology, with our resources, with our energy, but you have to come and bring it as well.
Yeah.
So that's a two-way street, and we don't work magic. But I can also say that remember that there are levels of proficiency and levels of fluency, and many of you are probably already functional in English, very functional, and have some fluency. What you're talking about is a very high level of fluency, and that comes with regular practice, regular exposure. The success story, I'm probably walking around the kitchen right now, is my husband, and he's a good example because he's very committed. Of course, it probably is a helpful factor to be living with a native speaker, but I mean, he really did a lot on his own. He reads
so he's not a native speaker.
Oh no, he reads a lot. When we met, he spoke more with a British accent too, but I'm saying that he reads a lot, he listens a lot. His vocabulary is phenomenal because of the constant exposure. I mean, he has mastered academic vocabulary, the idioms, it's all there because of that regular exposure through listening and through reading, and the desire to have conversations when possible, with different people. So I think, if you explore the opportunities and maximize your resources, you can give yourself that necessary exposure to reach a high level. But I will also say, among my private students, I have at least one very, very fluent person who's just meeting with me like a personal trainer to keep at extremely high level, at the native level, with vocabulary, background knowledge of our literature and culture. So she is going all out to really have an extremely high level of fluency in English. And it's that kind of motivation that is commendable, but shows you just how far you can go if you desire it, and if you make that weekly effort. Weekly, she's with me.
Okay, so there you go, you guys. You heard it from me, you heard it from Jennifer. It's possible, but you have to be committed. You have to do your part to accomplish that. Okay, have you seen any other questions for
fluency, vocabulary? Again, I say read the exposure, guys. Reading. I also say, I believe, Read Theory. I haven't used it a lot. Readtheory.org, but it's a free site where you start reading, and the site grades your level. It knows your reading level, and you answer questions. And when you start performing better, they give you more difficult texts. So obviously the reading can help develop the vocabulary, because if you understand the text, you'll be answering the questions correctly and you will move up to a higher level. The other thing you can do is, just read news blurbs and turn on some kind of translation tool. ReadLang is, I believe, a Chrome extension I've recommended to students.
Readly. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that there are definite ways to give that exposure. Reading is so big for vocabulary. Do not, as idioms are great, but don't ignore that there has to be a balance between idioms and general and academic vocabulary. You need the general and academic vocabulary too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Idioms are so fun, but then at the end of the day, what is it more useful to know idioms or know how to pronounce something really well and communicate something, or actually have a conversation? An idiom is sort of a nice way to connect with someone. I think a really so if you really want to get to the next level in English, I think the idioms are great. But
Okay, wait. Alush said, please see my question about speech organs. I know how to pronounce, but my speech organs don't aid me to do the correct pronunciation. I think you're talking, what I think Emily and I use, we use the word articulators, and those are the parts of your mouth that you use to produce sounds, right? Like your lips, your tongue, your jaw, your teeth, all your articulators work together. So again, just like I was talking about, teaching directly and explicitly, and also just having you pick it up. That's also how we can teach sounds. Sometimes it's listen, repeat. You hear Emily, you repeat after her. Hey, it's accurate, great. If it's not accurate, then it helps for a teacher to explain what is happening with those organs, as you call them, or articulators. How is she using her lips, tongue, and jaw to produce the sound? So you need to have awareness of how sounds are produced. And you can, again, explore and see the different teachers who focus on pronunciation. In my older series on YouTube, on vowels, I talk about the importance of lips, tongue, jaw, and like being aware of how you're using these parts to produce vowels. So if you have awareness about mouths being more open or more closed, and your tongue being higher or lower, all of this knowledge will help you self-correct. If someone says you need to round your lips more, you can look in the mirror, look in your phone in a selfie, and watch your positioning to make sure your positioning is as accurate as possible. If it's not accurate, then you think, are my lips in the right position? Is my mouth open enough? Is my tongue in the right position? Something is probably not in the right position. And how to get more articulate with that, or accurate, it's drilling. Drilling. You have to do repetition.
Muscle memory.
So,
like playing a sport.
It doesn't sound fun to, like peas, bees, ball, but you're reading like 50 words with b. But if you're having a problem pronouncing b, then you need to produce it many, many times to teach your articulators what to do.
Yeah.
So repetition.
Yeah, and another important point about that is that I've read a lot of research studies that have sort of studied like the difference between if you try to teach pronunciation just by having the students kind of hear it and repeat it or whatever, like it's not as effective as if you actually learn, okay, put your lips here, put your teeth here, whatever, like exactly what you should do with your mouth and exactly what you should do with your lips, because otherwise you're just going to hear something and you're going to imitate the closest approximation from your native language, which is totally normal, but then you may make a sound that sounds kind of strange to someone else. So it's important to have that sort of basis of knowledge about exactly how to make all the sounds, along with, of course, all the intonation and word stress that we talked about before. But in terms of actually learning to pronounce, I think it's important to stress that you have to know about these articulators and just what to do with them, because otherwise you're just going to sort of be approximating the sound, which is not always going to get you the result that you want.
At the same time, it goes back to something you said, is like sometimes we can over-explain, and I'm guilty of that too. It's harder in a video because we don't know who's on the other side necessarily. But that's one reason why I do love private instruction, because one-on-one, you will get my feedback.
Yeah.
And I love the accountability on me one-on-one, because I know that I need to give the feedback during the lesson or through homework. Students send recordings, I evaluate. So it's really beneficial to have some feedback. If you're not in a position to get that kind of feedback, well, then the next best substitute is to self-evaluate or get a conversation partner, a study buddy, as we said. Even if it's a non-native speaker, it's someone who can listen to you and listen for accuracy.
Right. Yeah, and also just sort of get you talking, because if you don't have the motivation to record yourself, at least you can find some other motivation just to talk, like just to have the sound actually come out of your mouth. Because I think a lot of students are able to listen and understand and read, but then when it comes to speaking, that they have a lot of struggles.
I don't know what kind of things you guys did. So my major was in Russian, and then I did 2 years intensively with Japanese. But of course now I hardly remember anything. But I do remember in like first year Japanese, we had to get a partner, and we had to exchange phone numbers. And once a week we had to have a phone conversation. And it was hilarious because we were beginners. We hardly could say anything. And it was like, hello, hi.
Yeah.
It's Monday. Yes. It's nice. Yes.
Yeah, because you can't say anything else.
But we're saying it in Japanese, like mushi mushi, mushi mushi, and it was cute.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of like, I'm speaking Japanese. And even if you're speaking with another person, it's the confidence that you build and giving yourself the opportunity. So imagine if you do a Skype call with a study partner like that. It's practice, and you can record a Skype call, and again, both of you can watch the video and evaluate yourselves. So, Ohio, I see that.
Okay, any other questions? I think I saw one about the IELTS. Do you know much about IELTS? I'm not an expert in IELTS, but I always get questions about it.
I love to teach, but I am not an IELTS.
Not
I
IELTS,
don't teach for tests. I don't teach for tests, guys. I teach general fluency. I also teach English for professionals. I think it's very important, these exams, we need them.
Absolutely, yeah.
I am not a test prep teacher.
Okay.
So.
All right, so let's see if there's any other questions besides that one.
But writing tips, I mean, I've taught general writing. I've helped business professionals with email and reports, and I've also helped with essay writing. So if you just want to learn how to write, clearly and logically, then I have helped build those skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I think working on your speaking also helps your writing for sure, because then you just have more things to say. I think sometimes, at least with my students, I find when they're struggling with writing, it's because they actually don't know what to write. But as soon as you give them something that they really want to express, like something they have a strong opinion about or whatever, then it flows a lot more. So if you kind of talk it out first, you may have more ideas of what to say.
And a tip again, if I see someone saying, does anyone want to communicate with me? So yes, on discussion boards, you try to find a partner who's interested in that kind of practice. But again, if you're on your own, 2 things you can do is you choose. If you read something or hear something, you can write a quick little summary or just something that you learned, or write a reaction in just a few sentences. You can write that, or you can speak that. So anytime you listen to a podcast, can you summarize it? Can you react to it either through writing or speaking? After Emily and I are done, can you recall just a couple things that we said? Can you retell it, or can you write it? So whatever skill you want to focus on, that's something that you can do, and it will also help you retain that information.
Great. All right, well, I think we may be almost out of time. It's going to cut us off at an hour. I don't remember exactly what time it started, but before we leave, I just wanted to make sure I had the chance to say thank you, and it was really great talking to you. I'm glad we got to do this.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks for making the time. Thanks for all the great advice. And everyone, be sure to follow. Can you remind everyone what's your Instagram name?
First of all, my website is English with Jennifer.
Okay,
and
English with Jennifer.
If you want the playlist on intonation, I have YouTube playlists, but you can see all my playlists on englishwithjennifer.com. Just look under the student menu, you'll find it. And YouTube, I'm My name is Jennifer ESL, but the channel name is English with Jennifer.
English with Jennifer, okay.
And here on Instagram, it's English with Jennifer Lebedev. Someone asked, am I Russian? No, I'm American, but I'm married to a Russian.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll post this live for 24 hours and tag each other, so anyone who wants to follow her on Instagram, you should definitely do that because she's got some great videos and great tips. And oh, sorry, that comment didn't pin. Jennifer, EnglishWithJennifer.com. It's not pinning. Well, hopefully people saw it. Yeah, so anyways, is there anything else you wanted to say before we close out?
Just to thank you for inviting me, Emily, and I think it's been wonderful. I hope everybody got at least something to take away. I know we probably gave way too much, but if you walk away with even just one or two ideas or tips, then I think we'll be happy.
Yeah, great. All right, so to summarize, speak as much as you can and record yourself so you can get feedback no matter where you are, and motivate yourself. That's the most important thing. Just motivate yourself and commit to doing something.
Stay focused and have no fear.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and thank you for joining us, Jennifer. Would love to do it again sometime.
Thank you,
care.
guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.